Hey YouTube, Jack of all trades. Tonight I want to talk a little bit more about ham radio stuff here, and a question I keep getting a lot of comments, a lot of questions, PMs, is stuff on repeaters, repeater operation. Coming in as a technician new into ham radio, you're going to be inundated with a lot of repeater stuff. That's going to be your mainstay, your main staples of radio right off the get-go. Generally is 2-meter or 440 repeater operation. There's a lot of other modes of operation you can do and some other bands to play with, but kind of your bread and butter is going to be repeaters. So what I want to talk about here a little bit is just the basics of repeaters. What you need to know and kind of how they work. Kind of get you the gist going. So repeaters are a system usually on top of a hill, on top of a tower, where it has a lot of height advantage. And a repeater also has usually very, very good antennas on it. So it has a very sensitive receive and it has a strong transmit or output. They're usually around 100 watts. I know there's some bigger systems floating around out there, like 500 watt systems, stuff like that. It varies, but the common system that I see in my rural area is around 100 watts. 100 watt repeater has a very good range if it's on a high tower, up on top of a hill, much like my depiction here. And what does that give us? What do we get from having a repeater or using a repeater? Well, 2-meter and 440 operation, a lot of it is basically line of sight operation. So, you know, if you can see the other guy, or if there isn't a lot of stuff in the way, you can have a pretty good shot back and forth going simplex operation, radio to radio. But if this guy here wanted to talk over to this guy and all they had was small HTs here, they would have a very hard time being able to talk to each other with all these obstructions in the way. That's where the repeater comes into play, because now the repeater is way up here above them to where it has a clear line of sight or a reduced obstruction view of those two individuals, and it also has a much higher gain antenna. It has much higher output, so it is a much better system than what you're running around with. Now this guy can connect to that repeater, and everybody that's listening to that repeater can hear what he says. So how that works is a pretty simple setup. The radio that you're using and the repeater have what's called a split. And that split is a pair of frequencies that you're using. One is the transmit from the repeater, and that's what you're listening to. That's what you set your radio to listen to. So if I want to listen to the repeater, I'll set it to whatever the frequency is that the repeater's outputting on. That's its transmit frequency. And then the repeater also has the split, or the other frequency that it uses, and that's its receive frequency. And that's what you're going to talk on. So when you key the radio to talk, the frequency on the radio, there's a mode in the radio that's going to automatically switch the radio to a different frequency. And now you're going to talk. It's going to be instantaneous when you press the button. Now only the repeater is going to hear you talk. So you're going to come in on one side of the repeater, and the repeater is going to rebroadcast your signal now from a much higher spot with a much better antenna, with more power, more output, and it's going to broadcast it out for everybody to hear from a premium location that's been predetermined as an awesome spot for radio, and it's going to travel and give the best coverage as possible. So that's going to rain down for everyone to hear, and they're going to listen on their listening frequency, and they're going to hear you. So they're going to hear your rebroadcast. That's almost instantaneous. There's almost no lag time there whatsoever. So now you got this guy down here who normally couldn't make a radio-to-radio communication with this guy, but now with the aid of the repeater, now he can come up here, hit that repeater, and now everybody else running around in town can hear him. Now, it doesn't have to be on top of a hill, on top of a tower. A lot of repeaters in rural areas, or excuse me, in towns, are on top of water towers, are on top of buildings, that they stick them up. You know, there's ham radio operators that have their own small repeaters right on their towers. I have a crossband repeat system, which is kind of like a repeater. But this is kind of the basic repeater operation. It's going to be something you're going to use a lot in 2 meter and 440. You're going to get into some more advanced things I'm going to talk about in the next video with repeaters. And that's going to be with some link systems and some more of the nuts and bolts on how a repeater works and what to look for in a repeater. But if you guys like this kind of information and want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe, give me a thumbs up down below, and share with your buddies. Thanks, YouTube.